to Aimwell Missionary Baptist Church, aka The Well. We're about to begin our virtual worship service. We ask that you join in, get your Bibles, your tablets, whatever you need to make this a joyous and worship experience. We're about to begin our service.
Good afternoon, Facebook. Good afternoon, virtual attendees. So thankful for you being here with us this evening. My name is Terrence Mixon. I am the Minister of Music here at Aimwell Missionary Baptist Church, The Well. And this evening, I am so proud and happy to be sitting here with our new senior pastor, Pastor Trey Woolfolk, who took the helm on the first Sunday in March. It was just such an awesome celebratory time and just an awesome experience from all that we saw, and I am just so happy and so pleased to have him here. And today, we want to ask Pastor Trey just some details about himself prior to him coming to us here at Aimwell. How are you this evening?
First of all, I'm doing well, and I want to thank you for suggesting that we do this.
Yes, sir.
I've been here now maybe a little over 18 months, and as we were talking off camera, you were saying, there's a lot we don't know about you. We know you were talking about leadership stuff, and of course, you're one of our leaders, and I thank you for helping us navigate this virtual space that none of us have ever been through, and you're doing an amazing job with our music ministry, and my goodness, they have grown so much, and so I wanted to say that publicly first. But and as you was telling me, you said, Pastor, we don't know a lot about things that happened before, and so you said, man, before we start this journey, let's find out about.
Yes, sir.
And I thought it was a great idea.
Yes, sir.
So, but I'm grateful. So.
Well, I guess starting off, and we would certainly want to hear all those details, but tell us, how do you feel right now after becoming the senior pastor of Aimwell?
Well, this is going to be a long answer, but I appreciate you taking your time today, and you all as well. Thank you all so much. Well, to be honest with you, it's my emotions are all over the place. March 7th, as let me just first of all say to come here following. And I've never hid this from you all, as you know, in moments of transparency where God allowed me to open my wound so I can help somebody with theirs.
Yes, sir.
And I talked about just, a traumatic season of ministry. I'm answering it a long way to bring it to a point. It was traumatic, but even in the midst of the things that did go on, there were so many great things that happened in my ministry at the time.
Yes, sir.
And so it was the best of both worlds. I had a fight, and I had certain things and various leadership issues and contention that I had to deal with for a while. But amid all of that, God allowed my ministry to grow in a special way. And so to go from that very intense season, and it's kind of you don't know how things affect you.
Yes, sir.
Until you get outside of it, right?
Yes, sir.
And so coming here, literally broken. I'm not ashamed to say that. Okay. I came here broken. I came here hurt. And to be greeted with the warmth of Aimwell and the love and the embracing that seemed to have happened in the first 5-10 days.
Absolutely.
It's been a journey, and Aimwell, and as well as Dr. Jackson, our pastor emeritus now, and Lady Jackson, and just the entire family, to go from where I was 18 months ago, emotionally, physically, mentally, paranoid, so used to having people, not having a pastor that wants to, to push you and not restrict or anything, to go from that to March 7th, 2021, and to be announced as senior pastor, you which was such an honor to have you read
Yes, sir.
a prepared statement as a pulpit committee
Correct.
person.
That's correct.
And to share the overwhelming majority of our church would entrust the future of it with such a rich institution. Brother Mixon, I was thinking, in 134 years or so,
Yes, sir.
our church has only had 5 pastors. And a member told our pastor emeritus that preachers don't leave here. They die here. And what she was really saying was, there's no pushing out of a pastor.
Yes, sir.
The only way you leave is when you leave, when God takes you, or,
Yes.
and there has never been a transition
Yes, sir.
of this kind in the history of our church.
Mine.
And so here I am thinking about my personal history. And then I'm
Yes,
also thinking about the history of 134 years, 5 pastors, none of which had an opportunity to do what we witnessed.
Wow.
March 7th, 2021, where one living pastor, not dying pastor, not on
That's
his
right.
deathbed,
That's right.
one living pastor was able to pass the baton to a young pastor, and they were both able to, and still able to,
Yes, sir.
to first of all, we worked alongside each other for those amount of months, 18 months, and then to pass that peacefully, no issues, no anything,
No.
and to do that, and he's able to now sit on the sideline,
Yes, sir.
and every now and then can still be tagged
Oh,
in
yeah,
if needed,
yeah.
right? And so to have all of that happen, when I think about my history of getting to this point,
Yes, sir.
when I think about the no's, many people
Wow.
in my hometown had no idea. I served as youth pastor, and we'll get into that, I'm sure, as you
Yes,
said
sir.
you wanted to. Many people don't realize that I have been trying to leave Middle Georgia since 2015.
My goodness. Wow.
That's what people don't understand. I'm an extremely private person, which
sir.
I'm sure people have figured that out by
Oh,
now.
yeah. Yeah.
But because I try to, when too many people in your business,
Right.
you understand what I'm saying? You have too many
Understood.
voices that you need to hear God, right?
Yes, sir.
And so, Brother Mixon, folk don't know that I was up for a church in Tennessee in 2015. I was up for another church in Carolina in 2016,
Mine.
right? Both of those situations, the first one in Tennessee, I was told, you're our next pastor.
Wow.
And that process, when I tell you did a complete 180, went in the opposite direction. And I went from being a shoe-in
Yes.
to nothing at all. Next year, transition was supposed to happen. Transition was set to happen. It was looking good. Same thing, went left again. This 2016, right? I'm still like, okay, God, I'm ready to get out of here,
Wow.
right? Meanwhile, still being faithful, because what I've discovered is you don't have an excuse not to be faithful just because you feel frustrated.
Understood.
You understand
Yes,
what I'm saying?
sir. Yes,
Because
sir.
I was frustrated in making. I had literally done, and we'll get into it, I know, I've done a lot in ministry as it relates to children and youth ministry, right?
Yeah.
And I felt like I had hit a ceiling there, because I was, like, as I told you before, I was preaching around the country
Right.
and coming back to teach children's church,
Right.
like literally doing, and we'll get into all of the
Yes, sir.
logistics of that. But going through all of that and still being faithful, still doing it, but still really trying to get out.
Right.
2017 comes, right?
Right.
I'm just showing you my history, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
2017 comes, and I go to preach at a church in Texas, and the church itself, I'm there as a guest preacher, but I'm actually there to interview for a staff position
Okay.
as their new youth pastor.
Okay.
I went there. This is 2017. Again, kept it private. Nobody knew. And went to preach. I was there, preached service. I enjoyed the worship, mixed congregation. I was up for the challenge, new state,
Right.
new city,
Right.
large city. So I was like, okay, I'll enjoy this. And after the third service, they had 2 locations. After the third service, a singular sister came by herself. And of course, I'm be honest with you. I was a little fishy, but thinking, okay, why you wait till to be the last person, right?
Right.
So I'm a
Yes,
single
sir.
man, so
Right,
I understand. I have to
right.
be watchful of those things, and so she comes up to me and said, "I want to be the last person to talk to you," and I'm like, okay, and there's
Okay.
security, all this
Right.
stuff around me, such as we have at our church,
Correct.
and so she says, and again, the only two people in the church who knew why I was there was me and the pastor. Not even his inner circle knew why I was
Wow.
there because we was keeping it private.
Right.
I have you to know, this young lady said to me, she said, Pastor Trey, God told me to tell you it's not time to leave Macon.
Okay.
Now, imagine hearing this from a random person.
Right.
Never met them, don't know their name.
Right.
And she says to me, God says, it ain't time. She starts to tell me about the things I was actually enduring at the time.
Wow.
Started telling me stuff.
Wow.
Now, this is the Lord now. And so, I'm not gonna lie to you. I got on the plane the next day, frustrated, saying, God, 2015, Tennessee didn't work. 2016, North Carolina didn't work.
Wow.
Now I'm in Texas, and you sent some random person to tell me not to leave, and I'm frustrated.
Right.
My gift is not necessarily being used at the level it should be used.
Right.
You know that I'm in a restrictive place.
Mm-hmm.
I can't really spread my wings in fear
Right.
of
Right.
being
Right.
being perceived as a bigger threat.
Yes, sir.
And so I'm in this place of contention, and I'm in this place where I feel like I've outgrown. And so, but again, God had to say, you got to be faithful, right?
Right.
Even though you're frustrated. And so 2017 happened. And so after God said that, I stopped looking. And a lot of people thought, well, he just doesn't want to leave. No, I still wanted to leave.
Gotcha.
But how do you fight a voice that will send a random person to tell you,
Yes,
stay
sir.
right here?
Yes, sir.
And so what they perceived as my contentment was really me being obedient.
Gotcha.
You understand what I'm saying?
Understood.
And that's what we have to do. That's what God calls for. We can preach about this stuff, but I've had to live faith when you're frustrated,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so when I was never content, but I would never, and I said this to God, I would never go anywhere where you don't want me to go.
Wow.
And
My
so
goodness.
after all this stuff comes full circle, a year later, it gets even more intense on the job. And I tell God, right? I tell God, listen, I got to move or I'm leaving.
Gotcha.
This whole year before my job ends abruptly, right?
Yes, sir.
I tell God, listen, I've had it up to here.
Yeah.
And now I'm one of those people, it takes a lot, but once I'm there,
Right.
I'm done.
Right.
Right? So I get there, Terrence, and so when I get there, another church comes open.
Okay.
That's in a rural area. And I'm thinking, surely, God, I can get this. This is a rural church near the city I lived in. Lord, I'll take this, God, just to
Right.
get me out
Right.
of this current job, right? I sent my resume in. They called me. We heard about you, Pastor Trey. Heard about your ministry in Middle Georgia. We'll call you. They never called.
Never called.
Never got a chance to preach. They ended up choosing a pastor who was about 72 years old, right? This is all in 2018 now, right? We're in 2018. And so you ask me how I feel,
Oh, yeah.
and I'm sitting here thinking in my head about these no's, these things that didn't work out that I wanted to work out, only for me to be sitting here at a church I never applied for. Never
Wow.
applied for the position of assistant pastor. All I gave Dr. Jackson my resume, as you should,
Yes, sir.
to let him know that
Sure.
you know authentic. But there was never application process, never interview.
My goodness.
I literally came here. We went to Winsel's on
Right.
airport.
Okay.
Had dinner with Reverend Jackson and Mrs. Jackson. Came here the next day. Drove myself here, and walked into a room of complete strangers and preached. And after the first time, it was clear to me, this is it.
Wow.
I didn't know fully that we would be sitting here.
Right.
Right? But I knew while I was preaching on April the 7th, 2019, God said to me, this is it. And as you remember that day.
Oh, yeah.
And the response, and it was
amazing.
It was such a connection instantly. And I remember going back to my seat, and it's funny, it's because we're in this virtual space, it seems so far long ago that I was sitting over there every Sunday.
Right.
But you know what I'm saying? And so we did this, and I remember going back to my seat and cry because I knew this was it. But when you ask me how I feel, I'm looking at all of this stuff, and I feel I'm overwhelmed because while you all may know part of the journey, I know that I've been trying to leave my hometown for 5 years. I've been trying to leave for years. Kept it private. Nobody knew. Wasn't everybody's business. Only to see how God had a plan in all the no's. Had a plan in the release. And then there are some well-intentioned who have said, well, you know, one door closed, the other door's open. That's really bad theology because that's not how it works for everybody. There's no guarantee that because this door closed, you're going to get automatic. No, sometimes God will have you sit in the hallway for a while.
My goodness. Yes, sir.
And so it's bad theology to tell people that because that's not how life works all the time.
Right.
What actually happened, Reverend Jackson was tired. He was tired whether I would have got fired or not.
Yeah.
Right?
I follow you.
You understand what I'm saying? And so he needed help whether I got fired or not. And James Jackson, who I sit down with next week, had a few names that he was going to recommend anyway.
Okay.
And it just so happened my name was on that list because I was a staff pastor that have yet to be step into a bigger role. And so you're asking me how I'm feeling. I told you it's a long answer.
It's okay.
Right?
It's okay. Take your time.
Right. Pastor. But it's such an emotional thing for me because I can't even put into words to see, and so the opportunity was coming to me, but in that list of 2 or 3 people that would have been suggested to help our pastor Maris, who's then our senior pastor, I get fired. And though I have not talked to James in months, I call him, we talk. I'm crying because I'm devastated because I served at a place for 10 years. Not even a real thank you was given, My goodness. And so I'm devastated. 10 years of my work and life and blood, sweat, and tears was into this place. And so you ask how I feel.
Yeah.
That's such a loaded
question.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's a loaded question because I know the story.
Oh, yeah.
And so knowing the story, and that's why, and the opportunity was coming, but one of the biggest things that I felt, I've been feeling that I hear, and again, people have well intention of saying what they say, but it's not necessarily accurate because it wasn't like I wasn't trying to leave.
Right.
But God wouldn't let me leave, And that's the tension of my life. That's the tension.
My goodness.
That's how I feel. I feel like the tension has been let off because now I understand why he wouldn't let me leave.
What a feeling.
He wouldn't let me leave because I was meant to sit here.
Yes,
you understand
sir.
what I'm saying?
Yes,
so
sir.
I'm sitting here and I'm like, you saying how you feel? And I'm like, man, I feel like I've been waiting to get here for 5 years. And I didn't know I was coming here. And so to be here, to witness what happened on March the 7th, the historic part about our church's history, to understand my history.
Yeah.
You understand? Because you look at people's story, but you don't know their history. You look at people's praise, and you look at people where people are, and you're tempted to even have an issue. But you can't have an issue with people because you don't know where people come from. Right?
That's right.
And so to be sitting here to have a loving church like the Aimwell Missionary Baptist Church.
Sir.
There is no church like the Well. And listen, can't nobody have church.
Yes, sir.
Like the Well. And so to be sitting here, Terrence, I know I told you it's going to be a long answer.
Oh, that's okay. Go.
But I warned you. But there is So many feelings. There is no one feeling that is dominant. There is one that is prevailing in everything that I'm saying is gratefulness.
Gratefulness.
Because I wish I could take y'all back in time to hear the devastation of things not working out in 2015, things going awry in 2016, getting this word from this stranger in 2017, and then trying to get this small church that could fit in our church.
My goodness.
Getting this small church. Would have settled for that just to get out, and not even that worked out. And I'm like, God, okay, you don't want me in another state? And then now to witness how this has happened.
Right.
Honestly, I don't know how to feel. Because the story of my life.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I don't know how to feel. I guess I said that to say I don't know how to feel because I'm grateful. I feel like crying. Yeah. It's scary because when you wait for something for so long and you finally get it, and it's here, and you see it. You know, you saw me at the retirement.
Yeah.
I could hardly contain myself because as the baton was jammed in my hand in true track star fashion.
Yes, sir.
As our pastor was saying, run it. I couldn't contain it because those tears in my eyes that I couldn't contain. Everything I just said, I was thinking. And I kept saying, God, this is why.
This is why.
You let all of that happen. This is why I couldn't go to Tennessee. This is why I couldn't go to Carolina. This is why I couldn't go to Texas. This is why I couldn't go to that rural place.
Right.
Because you wanted me. Because the strange thing about following God, Brother Mixon, is that he never tells you where he's taking you, but he demands that you trust where he's taking you.
Yes, sir.
And so to get to the place and it's like, oh. So, I don't know how to feel. Okay.
Well, Pastor, we are grateful that you are here.
I'm grateful.
And Pastor Trey has done so much for our church with his leadership skills and his ability to plan and execute and then redirect and sit back and evaluate. It's just been amazing for us as a church. It's been amazing for me as a staff person here at Aimwell.
Wow.
And so we know a lot about you and seen so much that you've done. But now that you are our new senior pastor, tell us about some of your ministry life before coming to Aimwell.
Thank you. Wow. Well, thank you for that question.
Yes, sir.
One of the things that is intriguing about the majority of my life, an adult life, has been spent working with children and youth. Okay. Right? As a youth pastor, I was a youth pastor in Middle Georgia for about 11, 12 years. Year and a half at one place, 10 years at another, right? In both places, I'll tell you about both of them. The first one, I was only there for a little bit of time before God moved me to Beulah land. Okay. I was at a place called New Fellowship Baptist Church. Their pastor, the founding pastor who was there at the time, is deceased now. Okay. And that's when I started to begin to hone on my leadership skills, right? Okay. I didn't have, the church is smaller, it's not even half the size of our church. Yes, sir. But I began to build a youth ministry with no volunteers. And so I had a children's ministry. And so I had a good number of children for the size of the church. So what I started doing in my leadership, because sometimes God doesn't show you what's in you until he puts you in a situation. Mm-hmm. And so I put me in this situation and said, build this youth ministry. I didn't want to be the only one doing it because the leader I am, as you discovered, I don't make singular decisions or I try to do everything myself. Yes, sir. I try to build teams around me so that we can effectively work together. And so I didn't have any volunteers. So how do you build a youth ministry with no volunteers? Yeah. Well, I started training my teenagers to teach and lead smaller Bible lessons. Now, I'm doing two things at the same time. I'm teaching them how to be responsible leaders, right? I'm also teaching them the Bible and how to be able to communicate it to somebody younger than them, right? That's evangelism, right? Okay. So what I would do on our Bible study nights, I would have a teen-only Bible study where I talked and developed them, and we did our Bible study. Then from there, we would, on Sundays, their job would be to teach.
Okay.
And in some cases, I was preaching every other week somewhere
Right.
at the time
Right.
because God had blessed my preaching ministry. So I couldn't just shut down children's church because I had an assignment. So I trained them to run it. And so I remember vividly 12 years ago, they said, well, Pastor Trey, you going out. They called me Reverend Woolfolk at the church.
Okay.
And so they said, you know, you going to be out today. Are we still having children? I was like, yeah. They said, but you're not going to be here. I said, I know, but we still having it. And to see my teenagers step up, and some of them I still talk to. A lot of them I still talk to.
Wow. Okay.
And they're, they're now in their late 20s now, having kids and married and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I still talk to them, and they led it, and it became like, well, wait a minute, he got them doing the work,
Right.
When really what the church didn't realize is that's what leadership is.
Absolutely. Oh,
It's
yes.
whenever you can train, build capacity in people, and then those people carry the vision and assignments you have as if it's theirs. That's leadership.
It absolutely is. Yes, sir.
And so I did that. So that was that. Then I moved to Beulah Land, which was, many people don't realize, Beulah Land at its peak had nearly 7,000 people.
Wow.
That were a part of the church. My children and youth ministry, and then we had 2 locations in 2 different cities.
Okay.
My youth ministry exceeded 500.
The youth ministry.
The youth ministry, right? And so I had 500 kids. It may have been more than that. I may be being modest with the number.
Okay.
But at times, I know we've had upwards to about 400 or 500 kids active, but we probably had about 700 or 800, right? Because of the size of the church.
Sure,
7,000 people, 6,000 people.
Right.
It's got to be that many kids in there, right?
Right.
And so, so I got there, the largest church in my hometown, and so I had to take my leadership to a different level.
Okay.
And so we had, like you say, let's say we had 500 kids active on a weekly basis, right? I had no volunteers when I got there, and so I had to recruit because certainly I couldn't train teenagers to do this because I was responsible for anyone between ages 3 to 18.
Wow.
Right?
Oh my goodness.
And you understand it because you're an assistant superintendent.
Correct.
But so I had that kind of responsibility, and I'm the only person getting paid. I had one person who was part-time, but he was over our choir, our children's and youth choir, right? And so I had to build this team, and so I started building the team slowly, and so team grew. We started having lock-ins. I'm sure y'all have had those here. And it grew. We went from having about 40 kids to, in one lock-in, we had about 220.
In a lock-in, wow.
For 12 hours, yeah. And so building teams, and then volunteerism with youth ministry is hard to do because it's a thankless job. Just like a teacher, it's a thankless job, right?
That's
Educator,
correct.
you understand that. And so it was hard to recruit people, but when I did, I learned how to manage the structure and the struggle of the structure with minimum help. And so I would have 5 or 6 people doing the work of 15. Because when you build capacity in people, they start to do a job that's bigger than themselves. And so before you know it, you have one person who's doing the job of 3 people. Because what God has shown me in my ministry, especially in my leadership, is that you don't need a lot to do a lot.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
And so I had, it was upon me. One of my big brothers, John Faison and Charles Goodman, both of them separately challenged me. Okay, your preaching ministry is growing. You're becoming effective. All of these things that happen. But what kind of leader are you?
Okay. And
they challenged me. And so I had to take it to a different level. And I became so intentional. And so it took some time to build capacity, as I'm sure you know. Yes, being in so many leadership roles in your life, you had to build capacity. And it took me time to do that. And so because of that, at the peak of our ministry, maybe 6 years in, I started the Real Church Children and Youth Ministry.
Okay.
At Beulah Land, and it grew from having 5 volunteers to over 75, 2 different campuses.
Wow.
And so this is a 2-day-a-week thing. I had to form a cabinet of leaders.
For children.
For my children and youth ministry. I had to form a cabinet because I started creating ministries like a newspaper ministry. I started creating ministries like dance and stuff like that, and choir for children's choir, teen choir. Our teen choir was one of the premier choirs of the McDonald's Choir Showcase that was going around the southeastern region. Okay. They were one of the featured. I had literally had like 75 teenagers in one choir, right? Wow. We formed a 150 voice children's choir, right? And again, notice I'm keep saying we, because I didn't do this by myself. I did this with dedicated volunteers and leaders who I could not have built it with. But God started really pushing on me. You know, you think about a great player like Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, one of my favorite players, LeBron James. Right. One of the greatest compliments about him, Brother Mixon, and I want this same compliment to be about me at the end of my life, which I hope it's a long time from now.
Yes, right.
is LeBron James makes everybody around him better. My goal as not just your pastor.
Yes, sir.
My goal is not just as your leader, but my goal in life is that I make people better.
I love it.
And what I tried to do with my volunteers is take on that responsibility. And we built the children and youth ministry that was the largest, first of all, in the church's history, and became the leading children and youth ministry in Middle Georgia. And we started outreach initiative. Nobody was doing back-to-school giveaways. Okay. Where you were actually giving away book bags and supplies. Okay. Lord put it on my heart, like, this is something you need to do. And I started it, and the first time we did it, 400 people showed up. Next year, 400 people showed up. The next year we did it, 700 showed up. By the third year, over 2,000 people showed up. In one day, none of them were members of my church. All of them were people from the community. And to this day, and I'm proud to say this, us starting that, it became infectious around the community. And before you know it, that went from being one book bag giveaway to being about 40 on the same day. And some people would be bothered, oh, they took my idea. But when it comes to serving people, there is no taking your idea. Right. And if God can use something I did to motivate others to start this, you know what I'm saying? So be it. Because it's about serving people, right? Oh, yeah. And so now, if you go to Middle Georgia around back to school time, you can take your pick of places because they're in 5-mile radiuses of each other. But because people started seeing these large turnouts of the things we did. And I'm proud to say this. I had a goal of giving away 1,000 book bags. Okay. And by year 6 at Beulah Land, we were able to do that.
That is truly an accomplishment.
Yeah. And that's when we had 2,000. And we still had to turn people away. Wow. Right? And here's what makes the beauty of my ministry at that time. Because I was still preaching around the country. I started preaching around the country. And I was also still serving as my pastor's armor bearer, which means I got up early, had to go to all 3 services. And so while I have all of these things going on, I'm also tending to my pastor. Because one thing I've always prided myself on is how I serve.
Yes, sir.
Especially those who God has given you rule. Because one thing about most people, and you've heard this, I'm sure, don't tell me how well you lead until you can show me how good you serve. Yeah. You can't lead until you've been a good servant.
Absolutely.
Right? And I served, right? Mm-hmm. And so I served my pastor, drove him, poured water, carried Bibles. I would literally, we had 2 locations, 3 services. Sometimes it was 4 services, right? I would get up 6-something in the morning, get there, get my pastor ready. We're out for the first service. Once I get him ready, I got to get something ready for us to eat on the way down to the other location 20 minutes later. Wow. We get there. The second location, the second service is also the site of our other location. I still got to preach to my kids.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right? So
Okay.
I had to get him to the pulpit, get him set, pour his water, say you good, then have to rush out because I've also structured my youth services around my schedule.
Fine.
So
Okay,
now
fine.
I can literally walk right in at the right time, barring no traffic,
Right.
walk in, preach, say I love you, kiss a few kids, and be out by the time he's given the benediction. This is my life on a week-to-week basis. Not to mention sometimes traveling with him during the week.
Okay.
So I was getting my master's degree.
All at the same time.
All at the same time. So what God was giving me, Brother Mixon, was the ability to multitask.
Okay.
And to still keep things running. But I could not have done that if I didn't develop the leader in me to be able to develop the leaders in others.
Right.
Because how do you explain going from your master's degree to traveling with an international voice, such as Dr. Maurice Watson, having the most thriving children and youth ministry in your area?
Right.
So much so to where people were coming from Atlanta and other states to come observe what we were doing. And so we were in a privileged place. It was a lot of work. And one thing you have probably become aware of, I'm not afraid of work.
Not at all. Not at all. No,
So,
sir.
I feel like there's a little shade in there.
No,
no. But no.
I'm a witness, though.
Yeah, but I'm not afraid of it because it's the work that wakes me up and motivates.
Oh, yeah.
I love serving God. I love working for him.
Yes, sir.
And my satisfaction has been as a leader is not putting my name on everything and say I did it. My satisfaction is seeing what God gave me. God gave me that vision of Real Church my first day on the job. Okay. And I saw this grand vision, and I only had maybe 3 or 4 volunteers at the time. And I went from that to taking 200 kids on a college tour, then to Six Flags in the same day. I went from basically we started offering scholarships to kids, right? Because we were doing so much in the community. A local lawyer decided, I want to be a blessing to the teenagers at your church because of what you all doing. And literally over the course of 3 years, probably donated to our church and our students about $20,000.
Wow.
In scholarships, right? So we did this stuff. One of the things I wanted to do in our youth ministries is for our youth ministry to be a hub, right?
Okay.
And for that means activity. So we built our own athletic ministry, right? Which is another evangelistic tool to reach the lost, young people or whatever.
Right.
Built this, and believe it or not, our attendance at our league games rivaled the recreation department.
The church league versus, wow.
It rivaled in attendance that.
Okay.
And you had to pay to get in.
Okay.
Because we needed the money to help with the kids, right?
Right.
Because kids weren't paying to be a part of it, right?
And
so we started this athletic ministry, 150 kids active, and 20% of them were from my church. These are kids that didn't even go to church.
That's truly amazing.
And so all of these things happened, and so God has always developed the leader in me.
Okay.
Which is probably why I am the way I am with you all
Right.
as it relates to building, because he kind of put me in this machine, and it's like either you're going to develop leaders and develop systems around you so you can do all the stuff that I'm calling you to do, or you going to fall flat on your face.
Oh, yeah.
And so I chose
Oh, sure.
yeah,
Sure.
to do that. And so we were able to do some amazing things. And one of the joys of my life has been touching lives.
Okay.
And I can remember I've had so many kids to come back to say thank you. One young man is making me want to cry every time I think about it. I got into his behind.
Okay.
Because he was getting in some trouble. And me pulling him aside and having a real intense conversation with him, he told me later on, you saved my life. And so my life has been committed to serving others, and it's been a joy. And I tell you, I probably never told you all this. You all have met my godson,
Correct.
Saxton Key, and he's finished. He finished school since he was here.
Right.
He's going into medical school. He's actually educated at the current moment. We go get him in middle school.
Yes, sir.
But Saxton, there's another name, Justin. It's bunch of other God kids that I've
Okay.
adopted. My goddaughter's name is Kiram. All of these kids were a part of my youth ministry.
Okay.
They weren't, and they all adopted me as a father,
Okay.
right? So, you know, you heard this term, don't take your work home with you.
Right.
I couldn't help it. And so my God kids, well, I was their youth pastor.
Right. Right.
And you imagine mentoring kids, and kids, you go to visit a kid at school, and the kid says, the classmate like, well, who's that? That's your daddy? And he and them say, yeah, that's my dad. You know. And
It's really something.
yeah, and so that it was, my heart has always been in my work. I don't know any other way to be.
Right. Right.
You know, and so my life prior to coming here has been a lot of leadership. I've traveled and done seminars for churches to help them build their leadership and structure as it relates to children and youth ministry.
Okay.
And I think what youth ministry provided for me is a simulated version of pastoring, because pastoring is more effective when you build a team around you.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so because of all of that stuff, it was I think that is really one of the most signal things about my life prior to Aimwell. People may not have known.
Right.
But it like you said, the youth ministry, it was an amazing structure with so many moving pieces, so many departments that, but God gave me the ability to be able to manage it all.
Okay.
Sometimes we ask God for big blessings.
Right.
Instead of the ability to manage it all.
Yeah.
And so, we pray for God to enlarge our territory, but you really need to pray, God, help me to manage
Right.
the territory. And that's what God allowed me to do in Macon, Georgia. And,
Wow.
I hadn't thought about it like the way you asked it. But, that is my life and experience in youth ministry.
Well, that's such a great lead to the next question I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
How has your previous experience in ministry then prepared you
for
this moment as our new senior pastor?
Well, it's prepared me in a number of ways, because what makes things run is building a working system, and that system cannot be built on one person. That's what youth ministry taught me.
Right.
And it taught me that the ability to see the bigger picture and to build a team to make the bigger picture happen, right? And so that means having a team of such as ours,
right,
who I don't make decisions by myself.
That's true.
Because
very true.
As spiritual as I am, as perceptive as I am, as much of a visionary as I am, I still need other people who can weigh in on stuff. Of course, at the end of the day, I'm the leader.
Oh, sure. Right.
So I have to make the final decision. But I've always, you asked me how it has taught me. It's taught me that it's best to have more voices at the table. The right voices, because it also has taught me that you can't have everybody at the table.
Right.
But when you have the right minds and the right voices at the table, then things begin to happen. And it took me a few years to do that in youth ministry.
Okay.
But it taught me when you have the right people and you build capacity in those right people.
Right.
Think about it. Jesus had 12 people and started a religion called Christianity that is still going, which is the reason why we're sitting here now.
What
12 people.
Wow.
12 people.
It's so true.
12 people. 13 if you want to count Paul.
Okay.
As the last lost disciple, right?
Right.
13 people have built what you have been playing in for most of your life.
Right.
What I've been preaching about for 15 of mine. 12 people, 13 people. Think about how many churches exist in our city.
Right.
Built off of 13 people. So what it showed me is that you don't need a lot, but you need the right people.
Right.
And when you have the right people with the right mindset, the right heart, who want to work and want to see the vision, it taught me that so many amazing things could happen.
Oh, yeah.
And to think when I walked into that job, I was thinking this church is way too big for me. I grew up in a storefront church.
Okay.
To be at a church now, you know what I'm saying, and to have that many people. And so Yeah, and so it taught me. It taught me that I needed an assistant. I needed somebody to help keep my schedule.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you go from having, I literally would preach. I remember vividly preaching, and I know we got to get ready to go, vividly preaching different places. And as I preached different places, I had to time my flight to get back for class. But I also had on Monday. Then I had to fly.
Right.
Then after flying back in for class, drive back to Macon to be at staff meeting on Tuesday morning. And do it all over again.
Okay.
Right? And so it taught me how to manage. Yes, it taught me how to
Yeah.
manage my schedule. It taught me how to keep my health up.
Oh, yeah.
And all of this kind of stuff. And so one of the main things that my previous season did teach me. Then it taught me how to be faithful when you're frustrated.
Oh, yeah.
It taught me how to serve.
Okay.
And during those times, I was given opportunities to do various things that showcase my gift. I did a lot of preaching as an associate pastor at this church. At the first 6 years, I preached a total about 10 to 12 times a year at our church, because my pastor at the time, Dr. Maurice Watson, was traveling the country, and he had so much faith in me, and there was such a great rapport with the people that he was like, I can leave and you're fine.
And everything will run.
Yeah, and everything ran. And then, there were Sundays. Another thing that this has helped me is understanding the value of bringing souls to Christ.
Oh, yeah.
Because I have those opportunities, and this is no exaggeration. I've seen 40 or 50 people in one service give their life to Christ, join the church.
What a blessing.
In 1 year, I think I was about 25 or 26, preaching at this large church where there was one Sunday that was 50, another Sunday that was 40, there was another Sunday that was maybe 35. And I did the tally just in my head, just being amazed about just how God could use the word he was giving me to bless and draw people, which is what it's really about, right?
Yeah, right.
I saw 130-something, 50-something people join our church. Not to mention the other 800 that joined under him, Pastor Watson, right? And so God was showing me, even in this time, how to manage preaching in different areas. One of our locations was a different tax bracket, and so it was a different style of worship. So I had to adjust to the scene, and so you can't have a predestined style or approach. Because every approach doesn't work everywhere, right? And so it taught me to be versatile, taught me to understand, and to value that, and to have this forward thinking about how we do church and how we worship. And so I've seen 50 people join, and we didn't have any room to sit people. They had to sit on the stage, on the steps of the pulpit, because we had no room on the rows. I've seen all of this stuff, and so it gave me such a desire and drive to reach people and draw people. Oh yeah. Which I think, and I believe that God's going to do.
Yes,
here.
sir.
He's already been doing.
Oh yeah.
Here, not just primarily through me, but through all of us coming together, right? And so it's shown me Beulah, that my experience at Beulah, especially those first 6 years, showed me a lot about that. And then too, it even and I got to be honest, even during the struggling season when the leadership wasn't it was more restrictive and more, overbearing and all that kind of stuff. It taught me how to preach under pressure. It taught me how to serve under pressure. Okay. Because surely there will be moments. In the future where there's pressure. But I still had to be faithful. I still had to show up. And my feelings, I wanted to leave. They're valid. We have this bad habit of trying to spiritualize stuff that ain't spiritual.
I follow.
We tell people stuff like, well, ain't no such thing as church. Yes, it is.
Yeah. I follow.
Because there are certain places you don't expect to get hit.
Right.
You don't expect to get shot at the hospital.
No, that's correct.
You don't expect to get robbed at the police station.
That's right.
Because there are certain places where you don't expect certain things to happen. So church hurt is real, but church hurt does not give me the license, one, to do anything. One of the things I never did, no matter how much I was attacked, no matter how wrong I was treated, right? Even at the end, how it was just like God said, it's time to go. No explanation, we're going in a different direction. After 10 years, no celebration, no acknowledgement, Nothing. Just 2 months of severance. And I was hurt, devastated, still kind of paranoid, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But not one time did I ever do anything malicious or even active. Now, let me tell you, I'm from the projects, Mix.
I understand.
My mama taught me if somebody hits you, you hit them back.
Right.
But God had to teach me, like David, that's still his man.
Oh, yeah.
That's still his king, right?
Yeah.
And so I had to learn how to let God deal with people, right? And so it taught me how to handle people and handle being in positions where people may hurt you. But you got to learn how to leave people in God's hands. Because I have discovered,
yes, sir,
if you put people in God's hands, I promise you he can handle them.
I'm a witness.
So much better.
Yes, sir.
Than you can. And so it just taught me how to be faithful and to have feelings, but not allow my feelings to rule my living.
I follow you.
And that's what a lot of people do. Get upset, get bothered. And you are entitled to feel that way.
Oh, yeah.
But my Bible says, be angry, but sin not.
Yes, sir.
And so it taught me how to serve under pressure and do all of these things. And thankfully, I've never had to get used to that here with our pastor.
Oh, yeah.
Who is Jesus Christ. I mean, don't even get me started. I'll cry again
sir.
talking about him. But our pastor emeritus, he's been a blessing to me. And so that season taught me so much. And I'm probably not saying everything, but you asked me, these are the things that just popped out. It's being able to do all of those things and manage and all of this stuff. And then having to deal with being in a situation that is frustrating.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but I'm a witness sitting here today that if you be faithful over a few things, God will make you a rule over men.
Oh, yeah.
I'm here because of God's plan and because I've been faithful. So wherever, and here's the other thing I'll say, and forgive me for, I know you about to say something else, but this just hit me, and you know how I am with a preacher,
sir, go right ahead.
So,
yes, sir.
Here's what we got to understand. Your primary job in life is to bloom wherever God plants you.
Yes, sir.
For
That's
10
a word.
years,
That's a word.
For 10 years, I was planted in youth ministry. I knew I was bigger. My gift was bigger. What I was bringing to the table, I knew I could be an assistant pastor. But God says, bloom where you planted. And my ministry is indicative of that.
Okay.
That instead of being frustrated looking at God, because these 2015, 2016, God still allowed, and to this day, the largest number of outreach attendance, meaning that people that we served in one day, has been held twice by our church. We've had over 2,000 people to show up. And it's been hosted by the ministry that I was leading.
Wow,
now, I could be mad that I ain't pastoring like some of my other friends,
Mm-hmm.
or I could be faithful where he planted me.
Oh, yeah.
And watch God give the increase.
Yes, sir.
And so one of the biggest lessons, and it just hit me, is that just bloom where you planted.
Bloom where you planted.
Wherever that
Love
is.
It. Love it.
And see, Pastor preached for his last final message as pastor, I choose Nineveh. And he was talking about how Tarsus was this metropolis and metropolitan area. That would have been the ideal circumstance. But you got to go where God plants you.
Oh, yeah.
You can try to get there, and you're going to be frustrated. I would rather be where God wants me to be. And it's clear as day.
Clear.
That God wants me to be planted right here. Not just in Mobile, but at the Aimwell Missionary Baptist Church.
And we thank God for that.